Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's not that we say, well, we don't interpret the scriptures, but rather, if the meaning is clear and straightforward, then you just take it as it is. Interpretation is only required when the meaning is not clear. And interpretation, that should also be given by a self-realized person who knows the purpose of the Vedas. You have to understand that the Vedic knowledge is spoken to a very wide range of people, but the purpose is one. But it speaks to different people at different levels of understanding. Otherwise, why should the Vedic literature recommend the worship of different demigods? It does so to speak to people at that level to gradually bring them up. So this statement from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, that has to be understood within the whole context of the Vedic literature. The multiple directions within the Vedic knowledge do not indicate multiple purposes of the Vedas, because the purpose of the Vedas is only one. But the multiplicity of directions address the multiplicity of material desires of the conditioned living beings, to bring them up from whichever platform they are on. So those who are inclined towards karma kanda, here, take this, very interesting for you, take this. For those who are very interested in jnana kanda, here, this is very interesting. They will be attracted, yes, this is very nice, let me take this up. The actual purpose will be understood by a self-realized soul. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam ruhayam hajino yena gatasapanta. The real purpose of the Vedas is understood by a self-realized soul, therefore we should follow in the footsteps of Mahajanas. So it seems your discussion was going on a wrong basis. We don't say no interpretation, but interpretation is only required where the straightforward meaning is not clear, if there's some apparent contradiction. But interpretation means it should be explained by a self-realized person who knows the purpose of the Vedas, not misinterpretation, mental speculation, or malinterpretation.
So the question was that usually Prabhupada uses such words as rascal, idiot, and so the question was in which level it is said that we must preach and say what Prabhupada said. But in which level we can use these words rascal to the people. And another question was what means gentleman in Krishna consciousness.
Well, you see that Prabhupada used these terms, but when he was personally speaking with people face to face, he didn't say to them, you are a fool. Rather, he would discuss their philosophy and show them how it was foolish. What was the second part of the question?
What means gentleman in Krishna consciousness?
Gentleman means he follows the regulated principles and chants Hare Krishna.
He motivates his second question that it is said that you must be a gentleman and speak not such severe words as rascal or something like that.
Who said that?
What?
Who said that? Where's this quote coming from?
As he knows, it is the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati or Bhakti Thakur.
Really? I can give you another quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. How the real sadhu, he is like standing on someone with a knife ready to plunge it into them. Bhaktisiddhanta says, yes, hello, how are you? Very nice. The so-called gentlemen of the world, they're just smiling at each other, being very polite, but they have no transcendental exchange. We have to speak the truth. If we can present it palatably so that people can accept it, that's all well and good.
People won't accept it.
So that people will accept it. But in the name of making it more palatable, if we change the recipe, then it's no longer the truth. Just like if we have to give medicine to someone which is very bitter, so we could maybe add some sugar to make it sweet. But if we think, well, this medicine is so bitter, we'll take out the bitter ingredient and then it's no longer medicine. So we have to see. Our aim and object is it's not our aim to speak harsh words, but the fact is that the truth is harsh. It's not just a matter of using strong language for the sake of it. But the actual fact is that 99.99% of the world are living a very foolish and demoniac way of life. If we're going to speak the truth, then we can't avoid saying these things. And by saying the truth, by saying straightforwardly, then you sort out immediately the sincere from the insincere. The thing is that we have to be convinced ourselves. If we're not convinced that this material world is no better than a place that people go to pass stool in, then how are we going to preach to others? We go in some filthy, stinking toilet, And we think, well, actually, it's not so bad. It's kind of nice, you know. You don't criticize too much. I mean, that smell's not so bad. We don't want to upset the people by telling them that the stool stinks. So we may say, actually, it smells very nice in here. Just spray a little perfume and everything's wonderful here. Never saw such a wonderful place in my life. Some of these people, they make modern art out of the toilet. You know that? It's Andy Warhol. They made some exhibit of modern art. Andy Warhol. Maybe you've heard of him? Another big rogue. You heard of him? He's very influential. You ever heard of Andy Warhol? You're lucky. Never heard of someone. Never heard of so many fools, rascals and demons. But still you're influenced by them, even though you don't know their names. So anyway, if you can preach very nicely and sweetly, some people, they preach in that style and they make some devotees, so if you can do that, very nice. The test will be how we bring others to devotional service. And practically we see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada are very powerful acharyas have brought many people to devotional service by speaking the truth. And people who are sincere will be attracted to them. I had a wonderful experience, it must have been in August in London. I was doing the questions and answers booth at the Rath Yatra. So many people coming off the street, and people in London tend to be very puffed up. They think they know it all. So to deal with them, I had to get gradually heavier and heavier and heavier. Just tell people to shut up and all kinds of things. Someone said something about God, and I said, you don't speak. You're smoking a cigarette, you have no right to speak anything about God. This kind of thing. I had to. There was no other way to do it. So eventually I just got very heavy, and I said that, look, you're all in illusion. You don't know what the purpose of life is. From your birth, you've all been cheated. You're not in control of your senses. You see something on TV, and you think, I have to buy it because someone's cheating you, putting an advertisement. I went on for about 10 minutes like this. And then I stopped, and they're all quiet. And then one person said, he's right. And someone else said, go on speaking. If you just tell them, look, you're being cheated. The TV is cheating you. The educational system is cheating you. The whole society is cheating you just to be a moron, to work hard as like an ass. You have no spiritual knowledge. I was saying more words like this. You're just working like asses without any spirit. You have no idea what the purpose of life is. They accept it. So it may not be every time. I mean, they could have also beat me up. That's also possible. But they didn't. Accepted it. If you just try to be, these people, they're just attacking you with all their stupid ideas. Either you can say, yes, that's very nice. Or you just get right into it and say, look, everything you said, it's all rubbish. You don't know what you're talking about. You shouldn't speak don't speak, you should listen. Sometimes you have to do that. It requires some expertise also. But preaching means you have to meet all kinds of opposition. Preaching means you meet so many people who want to show that I am right and you are wrong. Preaching is a challenge. When you go in public as a Hare Krishna devotee, you are making a statement that we are following something which is different to the whole Western idea. We have left your society, we have left your values, we have a different thing to do. So definitely people are going to challenge. Don't think you can just be, oh yes, you're very nice, we're very nice, we're all brothers and sisters. It's not going to happen. I mean, you can preach like that. You can say, yes, you're having sex with your children, very nice. You're eating meat, very nice. But that's not preaching. It's not preaching, and nor will anyone take you seriously. Nor will you ever bring anyone even one step closer to Krishna consciousness. Like I was saying, some expertise is required also. It's not necessary to always smash people. Just like one time at a public meeting, someone stood up and said, I am God. So Prabhupada said, very good, now sit down. Another time someone stood up and said, I am God. Prabhupada yelled at him, you are not God, you are a dog. And the whole hall with several hundred people, this was in Scotland, everyone clapped. So you have to see. If you preach strongly, some people may get upset. Sometimes people got upset at Prabhupada. These women's liberation reporters, they left the room slamming the door because Prabhupada insisted that women are less intelligent than men. So they didn't want to accept. They became upset. Prabhupada didn't change his philosophy.
Most Brahmacaris have some apartments where they learn shlokas, gather together and talk about all these things.
What's that?
Separate apartments. Learn.
What is that? I can't understand.
Must Brahmacharis have, is it good for Brahmacharis to have some separate apartments?
No, Brahmachari means he should live in the Gurukul. Means in the temple. In the ashram. There's a difference between being a Brahmachari and being a bachelor. Bachelor means unmarried young man. It's not exactly the same thing. Brahmachari means a life of submission. But I mean, if the apartment is rented by the temple and you're working on temple authority, that's Brahmachari life. But if you're organizing your life in your own way, well, I mean, you may be doing that. I'm not saying you're a demon or anything, but it's not the same as Brahmachari life. In Russia, they call that Domachari.
No, but he meant that in temple because some guests come and they may somehow disturb.
No, Brahmachari should have their ashram. It's not meant to be the public place. Of course, one thing in Russia is that the temples can't support the brahmacharis, so they have to live outside. It's an unusual situation in some places.
I would like to know how it would be possible to decrease personal motives in the Krishna consciousness at the beginning.
Well, beginning means you're at the beginning, so you have to gradually make progress. It doesn't all happen immediately. But basically, we should do everything for Krishna's pleasure. If we do everything for Krishna's pleasure, then personal motives automatically decrease. Yep. So whatever you're doing, you practice this, you practice consciously thinking that I should be doing this for Krishna's pleasure. That means if you're cleaning the floor, you do it very nicely because you're thinking, I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure. Yeah.
If Brahmacharis live in the ashram, should we try to make some educational programs?
That's already going on, isn't it?
Yes.
So what's the question? Well, unless they're telling you to eat meat and drink wine, more hearing and chanting. As long as they're telling you something which is bona fide, then sure it should continue. We're lucky. Funny, in some places they don't have extra classes and they complain. In other places they have extra classes and they complain. That's why I say, whatever you do, someone will criticize you. If you do nothing, someone will also criticize you. Why is he doing this? You better do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Don't worry too much what other people say. What's your question?
How to know what is your nature? Because there are some cases when a devotee lives a brahmachari life and he then at the age of 40 he gets married.
That's got nothing to do with your nature, that's just lust. If you feel you're going to get married, better do it earlier. It's generally not recommended to get married so late. Our nature is that we're pure devotees of Krishna. It's not our nature to be covered with lust, greed, anger, envy and all these things. So you should see, by the age of 30 latest, you should decide. Better just, if you're still thinking maybe not at the age of 30, better just get married. If you're not convinced to stay brahmachari, then better get married. It's better to do it earlier than later. If you're not convinced, you're not going to be able to survive.
Should we make some distinction between brahmacharis and grihasthas, because they sometimes make programs separately from grihasthas, only for brahmacharis?
Yeah, some distinction is there. Definitely it's not exactly the same. Just like a brahmachari class will generally be more appealing to brahmacharis.
In the spring there was decided by GBC not to do Guru Pujas. So how it...
I don't think, if you see the resolution, I don't think you'll find that. What is the actual resolution? Does anyone know? I think it says not in the temple room. I think it's just not in the temple room, that's all. What is it? What's the resolution? What is the resolution? It's not that I don't believe the resolution is that all Guru Pujas should be stopped. I don't think to find out what it actually is.
It's not like a temple program, it's like individual devotees.
Is it? I'm not sure what the resolution is. I don't keep up with the GBC resolutions. And, there's always a lot of change, and then people interpret it in their own ways. And in one temple they do it one way, in another temple they do it another way. So some temples they have a big seat for the visiting guru to sit on. In others they have the same seat that everyone sits on, the low ones. Whatever's there, I just accept it. But maybe you could find out what the actual resolution is. Yeah, and then you can communicate to others.
Sometimes brahmachari is ashamed to say that I'm brahmachari or something like that.
Sometimes they what, sir?
Ashamed to say, ashamed.
Ashamed?
Yes, to say that I'm brahmachari who live in the temple. So what must be the mood of a brahmachari?
Why ashamed?
So they say that maybe I should change my clothes.
Why are they ashamed, and who are they ashamed to say that to?
Now I have some idea that it's not necessary to show that I'm Brahmachari.
What does that mean, not necessary to show?
And because the previous time was that everyone is Brahmachari, and now another maybe opposite point.
Different fashions change. You shouldn't be proud of being a brahmachari, you shouldn't be ashamed of being a brahmachari. These are all material motivations. Brahmachari means a servant. Just serve Vishnu and the Vaishnavas. Don't worry too much about if they praise you or blame you or whatever. That's why I was saying that brahmachari may be good for staying humble. You're just a brahmachari. Yeah, that's right, just a brahmachari. Thank you for not puffing me up.
If the devotee lives in the temple but doesn't have pranama or initiation, should we say that he is brahmachari?
Yeah. Usually we say new bhakta. I mean, these are all, it's a matter of semantics, isn't it? I mean, if he's serious and he's practicing, he's brahmachari.
During the brahmachari class we use some books from the secondary school how to preach, yes?
How to give lectures. Class.
Yes, how to give lectures. Is it good?
Main thing is if you have faith in Guru and Krishna, that will help. Otherwise you can learn different techniques and it will be very attractive. You can make a dramatic pause, pull a rabbit out of your pocket. Krishna conscious means to please Krishna. It's not a matter of theatricals. So some things are good to learn. Just like if you are going to speak, for instance, to a group of businessmen, it would be wise to dress somewhat neatly, both socks the same color, without holes in them, and so on. There are some basic common sense things. But you see, transmission of spiritual knowledge is heart to heart. If your heart is pure, you can influence others with Krishna consciousness. And even if you learn different techniques of speaking, if your heart is not pure, then you won't be able to influence them. Even if you influence them, it will be on some platform that is mixed with Maya. You see, the most effective speaker of Krishna consciousness in the modern age is Srila Prabhupada. Now, from the mundane or from the external point of view, there are many people who is a much more effective speaker than he. He spoke in a very formal style, very philosophical presentation. No tricks or any techniques or any such thing. He spoke basically the same basic philosophy again and again. But by his speaking, he made so many people, he changed the lives of so many people. So although there may be some value in such things, it's not really that important. If we think how to please Guru and Krishna, then Guru and Krishna will give us all intelligence, what to say, how to say it. Otherwise, if you're all the time thinking, well, now I have to go like this, and now I have to look around like this, you're all the time thinking of the technique and not thinking of the message, it won't be effective. I mean, I know Prabhupada sent his disciples to preach all over the world. He never, there's no history of Prabhupada ever asking any one of them to study speaking techniques. But by his disciples speaking, they were also very effective by his grace in spreading Krishna consciousness. Whatever techniques are there, you can learn them in 5 minutes anyway. I mean, you're supposed to keep eye contact with everybody, which Prabhupada didn't do actually. He mostly closed his eyes when he was giving lecture. And an important thing is to speak at the level of understanding of the audience. You have to have some understanding of where the audience, what their consciousness is, what their level of understanding. So that's an important thing, which Prabhupada also did. But as far as all this dramatic pauses and then gesticulating with your hands and all this, it's very, theatricals are not required. If automatically, without thinking, that you make some gesture, that's alright. But just to practice doing it, it's artificial. People are not going to be impressed by anything artificial. Only artificial people will be attracted by artificial things. We're interested in substance. Krishna consciousness is substance. Vedam vasavamatra vastu. This is the real substance of spiritual knowledge. It doesn't require theatrical tricks to deliver it. There's one story, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Exactly the same thing. One sannyasi was teaching brahmacharis how to give speeches. Was teaching brahmacharis how to give speeches with all these different techniques and all this. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he came, he saw this, this is all. No. You speak, if Guru and Krishna are pleased, then they'll be pleased to manifest on your tongue. If you think, I am speaking, by my wonderful speech, so many people will be convinced, I am such a great preacher, your speaking will be useless. The best speaking technique is, before you give a lecture, you pray to Guru and Krishna to properly represent them. It's the best speaking technique of all.
Yes, you said that sometimes the truth is harsh and you must speak that truth to the people. And Shukadeva Goswami in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he prays to the Lord that make my speech pleasant to the ears of audience.
But what Shukadeva Goswami started out, what's the first thing he said? Shotavyadini Rajendra Nrinang Santi Sahasrasha Apashitamatma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamedinam. The first thing he said to Parikshit Maharaj was chopping away at the foolish life of the materialists who simply spend their days working kutumba balanenava and nights nidriya hriyate naktam, simply sleeping and having sex. So he was asking that his speeches be decorated so they be pleasing, not for the sake of pleasing artificial people on the platform of sense gratification, but it will be pleasing to those who are interested in pleasing Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami wasn't a washed out compromiser. He wasn't a compromiser. The whole Bhagavatam is full of so many descriptions which lacerate material life. You know what that word lacerate means?